people have to respect and believe in their own reality and respect and believe in themselves. Because otherwise you're vulnerable to someone's words, right? When they're going at you, they're telling you you're incompetent, you don't know what you're talking about, that never happened, you know, who do you think you are? And all this other stuff that leaves a person feeling like they're not enough, or that maybe that other person is right, not them. So all of that is foundational work that most people never do. Then you're in this relationship where somebody is speaking to you in these sort of dismissive, gaslighty, manipulative sorts of ways. There's a moment, and this is the challenge, is that for months, if not years, people believe what that person is saying to them. They actually believe that they're all those bad things, or they're not enough, or they're asking too much, or whatever it is, whatever their partner's going after them for. But there's a moment when it's a penny drop moment. Maybe it's someone's gaslighted you. They've completely denied your reality. And on a strange day, you actually record it and you play it back. You're like, no, I did hear it right. And then over time, you start saying, my reality is actually right. And one of the things I say, I use this a lot in my teaching about narcissism. I call it the DEEP technique. And DEEP stands for don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize. And if you can hold on to those 4 rules, which are not simple rules, they're hard rules, but don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. Don't defend is when somebody is saying you did something and you didn't do it, don't defend it. There's no point, because now what happens is you start going down the rabbit hole. It becomes strategic. It becomes intentional. This isn't about capitulating. This isn't about being a doormat. This is about saying, I'm not going to do this toxic dance with this person. Because in essence, Lisa, when you get into that toxic dance with somebody who has a really antagonistic, narcissistic personality, you're giving them exactly what they want. They want to get in the mud. I'm telling people, don't get in the mud. Defending oneself when, for example, they're misheard or misunderstood in a healthy relationship is totally appropriate. So a person says, hey, why didn't you say, listen, I put all the papers on your desk on the deadline. You didn't get to them. I get that, but I did do this. And in a healthy relationship, a person say, oh my goodness, yes, you did. I'm so sorry. Appropriate, okay? What gets challenging with the narcissistic relationships in our lives is you almost have to have 2 sets of strategies. And the don't engage part really means that you pull back quite a bit. You recognize that I'm always walking on eggshells. No matter how I say this, I get it wrong. And the don't personalize piece is this is them. It's not you. And especially the don't personalize piece, that's hard for people. They think it's got to be me. And I'm like, no, it's not you. If anything, you're so empathic that you're easy to take advantage of because they know you're going to keep coming back. So having those 4 simple rules, and those would apply to any kind of relationship. I also tell people it's incredibly important to have other voices in your life, other supports, whether that's friends, colleagues, family members, whoever your people are. What you start seeing is that all these other people are saying, I'm solid, I'm good, I'm kind, I'm competent. One person only is saying these things, and which side you're going to go on. And what makes it harder is if people heard these negating messages in childhood. So because then the narcissistic partner comes along and they're basically reinforcing these messages of I'm not enough from childhood. That's that cycle of defending and rationalizing someone who's saying you're not enough, something we call trauma bonding. You actually justify the narcissistic person, and that's a cycle that started in childhood. The child doesn't have an option. The parent they got, so they will justify that. And so a lot of it is about no longer doing the dance. Let's face it, Lisa, a lot of people can't leave these relationships for reasons of kids, money, culture, religion, and I never discount those reasons. Those reasons are very real, and it's not for someone to say, well, you just got to get out. When you say that to people, they say, well, I can't get out, so this all feels helpless and hopeless.
Okay, so let's assume that somebody is either with a narcissist or has someone in their life. I know that you have almost like certain rules that you advise people. So there's one phrase that you use, which is don't give your psychological passwords to them. I love that. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. When you think about a firewalled computer, right? It's very restrictive on what it lets in, right? It'll say this is a virus, don't let this in. And it's also very restrictive on what you let out. Like, and they'll even ask you, are you sure? I say don't. Part of firewalling is I wouldn't give you all my passwords. I adore you, but I wouldn't give you all my passwords,
I'd
right?
be nuts if you did.
Right. Yes, exactly. And so we don't handle. We're literally more protective of the password we have for some game on our computer than we are with the most sacred parts of our psyche. I'm like, what? You know, I mean, that doesn't even make. But it doesn't make sense. But everyone does that. They just hand it over. And so this idea is that you wouldn't just give away your normal passwords. Don't give away your psychological passwords, your deep vulnerabilities, because I'll tell you why, they'll use them against you. Narcissistic people will always weaponize your vulnerabilities. So a lot of times early in a relationship, people open up and they share their vulnerabilities. Something that's really, really sinister about narcissistic relationships is during that love bombing phase, they'll look at someone and say, tell me the thing you least like about yourself. And you're like, ooh, we're sharing. They're putting that in some sort of evil vault in their brain that then when either you're in the devaluing cycle or the discarding cycle, you're having an argument, they'll pull that vulnerability out. It could be about anything. It could be about body image. It could be about something that happened to you in childhood. It could be about your family, a dream you have, and they will use it against you. And for a lot of people, it feels like the air has been sucked out of them. The most vulnerable thing that a person could share, they've shared with them. And it's like, in fact, in a cult structure, it's often called collateral. Like it's like we've got to get something from them so we can almost blackmail someone down the road. It's like that, maybe not at that level, but it's that ability to say, now I've got something on you, so I know I can hurt you. And so that's what I mean about don't hand away your psychological passwords. Don't give away those most vulnerable parts of yourself until someone really gains that trust. People might be sitting there saying, well, are you telling people not to be vulnerable? Oh, absolutely not. I'm saying learn your people. Again, it's that two sets of ways of engaging in the world. And it's about taking a moment to get to know someone. If red flags are coming up, pay attention and hold back. You will get to the vulnerabilities. If this is a healthy person, you'll get there, but you don't need to get there in the first week. But I think so many people want to be heard and seen and understood that they rush to that moment of like, let me tell them everything and now we're in love. And I have watched people be destroyed having people take those vulnerabilities they shared with someone and having them be used against them in all kinds of terrible ways.
Ooh, have you noticed a correlation between people that have had narcissistic parents that then go for a narcissistic partner?
Yeah, there's an incredible vulnerability. And I talk about this. I talk about people who have sort of are narcissism magnets without knowing it. And one of the things on that list of magnets is exactly what you're saying, having come from a system characterized by this. There's a couple of reasons. One of the most tragically intoxicating things a person can experience is familiarity. When we say, ooh, we have a magical connection and I'm having a deja vu, I kind of put my head in my hand saying, no, this is not good for you, because the things that are familiar to you are actually quite toxic and poisonous. And that sort of familiarity of, for example, it's something we call working through. I couldn't win over my narcissistic father, but I'm going to win over this guy. Right? And so then they go right into that same cycle. And because it's so familiar, it's almost hard to get that view to say, this isn't healthy for me, or to get out. Because the whole life almost becomes this activity of trying to get this, trying to do all the things. I'm going to jump through the hoops. I'm going to win this time. And a lot of times people will convince themselves, like, if I can get it right here, then it'll be okay. Then I would have, sort of figured out what I needed to figure out from childhood. But the fact of the matter is, this adult narcissistic person is going to treat you as badly as your narcissistic parent. And this time it's going to get uglier, because it'll be things like the gaslighting and the manipulation and the rage. And for some people, that inner dialogue, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I have no right to be doing this, who am I to be pursuing my dreams, I need to stay in my lane, all of that stuff, that kind of inner dialogue, when it gets reinforced by a partner, people actually really get stuck in relationships.
Can you actually truly be happy in a narcissistic relationship? Because not sharing your vulnerabilities with someone, not listening when they give you advice because you don't trust them, because you're worried that they're trying to, oh, are you sure you should go for that job? Like, I really want to be able to take my husband's advice for true advice. And so not being able to share that, not being able to, I've heard you say that not to share your wins with the
No,
narcissist.
not your wins, not your losses, and not your vulnerabilities. Don't share any of them. I don't know that a person would ever be fully happy or satisfied or nourished in that relationship. I have seen people, amazingly so, figure out workarounds where they derive, I don't know, joy from their kids, their pets, their hobbies, their jobs, their other supports in their world. If provided the narcissistic person in their life isn't super controlling. Obviously, all of that gets very difficult if the narcissistic person has someone on a really sort of a short tie to say, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, and really isolates them from their world. When that dynamic is in place, I do not think it's possible to be happy. But if you're in a situation where you're kind of able to do some things that matter to you, I've seen people sort of carve out moments of happiness. But if this person's a day-to-day fixture in someone's life, not so much. I mean, I do think it takes a toll. And I've worked with people who've been in these relationships 30, 40, 50 years, and it hollows them out.
Is that inevitable?
I do think it's somewhat inevitable. How many times are you going to be invalidated? How many times is somebody going to walk around in the world and feel completely unmirrored in what is to be a loving relationship? And especially if they aren't able to build up those other spaces in their lives. Some people figure out the workarounds and they recognize, like, okay, this is not what I would have loved for myself or wanted for myself, but I will try to make the most out of what I can. And then they take almost a very existential point of view. This moment's beautiful, I'll be in this moment kind of thing. And so they do their best at sort of deriving the joy from a given moment here. And it's again, that's a sort of high level existential work. It's hard to do because you look around at other people and they are in love and their partners are appreciative of them and they are in a loving space, and their experience has absolutely no resemblance to that.